means taking your brand to a place where you can't control the conversation is dangerous. And I think that's such a foolish idea, because there is no such thing as an individual meme. There's no such thing as an individual gene. The meme exists exclusively in the meme pool. The gene exists in the gene pool. Otherwise, it's meaningless. It doesn't have anything.
So I guess, what is the Joe Federer origin story?
Joe Federer origin story. How far back should I go?
You can go as far back as you want. Your villain origin story, your nemesis, everything.
So in the intro of my book, which embarrassingly you already know this story, I talk about my first social network, which was a multi-user dungeon, a text-based video game called Dragon Realms. And Dragon Realms was the first kind of moment that I started to really deeply understand that my identity on the internet is different than my identity in real life. But there's some really important crossover between those two things. So I spent my childhood as kind of an internet dork, like split between kind of being a gothic jock and being a hardcore internet dork, trolling 4chan and looking for all the stuff on the internet that I wasn't supposed to find. Flash forward 10 years, I entered the advertising world at a serendipitous time when internet knowledge was scarce, and I came into a public relations agency with a treasure trove of silly, nonsensical internet culture knowledge that I had absolutely no intention of applying to my career. But as luck would have it, the advertising world needed that. And I was able to start some social digital teams in big agencies, first at Chisom in Chicago, then at BBDO in Chicago. In 2016, I joined Reddit to build the brand strategy team. And since then, I have been working, well, I left Reddit in 2020 and then wrote a book called The Hidden Psychology of Social Networks. And since then, I've been working on a combination of client work, helping brands understand and navigate the social media landscape, and working on some new thought pieces, a new book.
Was there a moment in your journey where you started taking internet culture seriously? This wasn't something that you did when you were on the internet. And was there a moment where everybody else around you in the advertising industry was like, oh, we have to actually take this thing seriously?
I was working on a brand called Hebrew National. It's a brand of hot dogs. And I was tasked with making a batch of content for their Facebook page. And we had never made content before. There were like some text posts that had gone out from the Hebrew National page prior. I made this really stupid meme about a wiener dog and a waiter bringing the wiener dog over, and the joke being, excuse me, this isn't what I ordered. And it got like 1,000 shares, which back in the old Facebook time was an unheard of amount of engagement for a branded Facebook post. And I just remember thinking, oh, this is lightning in a bottle. If you can put something out into the world that communicates the message that this company selling stuff wants to convey in a way that earns attention, in a way that makes people delighted and that people enjoy and that reinforces its value, I just felt like there was something so much more powerful to that than so many of the other tactics that I watched this agency and many of our kind of partner agencies execute.
You talk about how when you started using the internet, you realized that there was your physical self, like the you know of yourself, and then there's the you that you are when you are on the internet. And the internet has changed so much over the past 10, 20 years. How do you think, we're radically aware that Gen Z is far more conscious. They actually are aware that there is a camera on them all the time. How do you think we're going to see the people respond differently to the internet in the coming decades? Are we going to see a complete rejection of the internet, like going full Luddite response to the internet? Or are people just going to become more reckless and be like, I don't care if this is recorded, I will say what I need to say?
I think the mask that we're going to have in the next 5 years is this kind of AI deepfake technology. I think we're going to get really skeptical about the content that we see because it's going to be really easy to pretend that you did something that you didn't do. But I think our identities on the internet, and it's a they're shards of identity. There's not one internet Joe, right? There's a shard of me on LinkedIn. There's a shard of me on Facebook. There's a shard of me on Reddit. A much bigger shard of me on Reddit. And across all of the different social platforms that I interact on, there are different versions of myself. And I think we'll just continue to see that proliferation of different kinds of selves that are valuable for us to express. You see this kind of trend line over social media usage where it's not just the amount of time or the amount of people that are increasing in terms of how much people are using social media, it's the number of profiles. And if social media was the caricature that media makes it out to be, oh, it's people looking for memes, it's people looking for validation, it goes much deeper than that. We wouldn't have, on average, 10 different profiles across 10 different sites if there wasn't deep psychological value to our representation and different kinds of representation across those different social platforms.
Yeah. It's
did I miss your real question? Did I miss the?
No, I think you got it. I was just thinking about like your book and some of the talks you'd given about how like because we have so many different profiles of ourselves, whether it's like our id, it's Facebook is our id, right? It's the part of us that we want people to see, and the part of us that we are proud of, the part of us that are willing to show. And then you have Reddit, which is like the super ego, right? If I got this right, the part of us that is our
Reddit's the id, the Facebook's the ego.
It's okay, got it flipped. Perfect. No, it's okay. And I'm just wondering how, if we are going to, with the advent of deep fakes, how, no, I'm trying to articulate my question properly, but just with the coming decades and how we're going to become super skeptical of everything we see on the internet, are we willing to contend with, are we really willing to see the true depths of like humanity? Like, are we really willing to see ourselves? Because part of the reason why Reddit gets to be anonymous is it allows us for full transparency. Do we really want to know about our congressmen's Reddit posts? We really don't want to know what they're doing on Reddit. But we're going to get to the point where more people are going to, I just feel like the different identities we have are going to proliferate, but I feel like we're not ready to deal with the way that the different ways they're going to collapse on themselves. The certain ways we're going to be able to track, oh, this weird TikTok account follows this thing. This means this about this person. I think we're going to have to be willing to detach the financial incentives and the ways people make money from the ways in which they identify far more in the coming decades in order to make peace in the world.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back 400 years, the idea that you have a subconscious mind that's made up of opposing forces that doesn't even cross people's minds. It's like it takes Freud coming to culture and saying like, no, you have lots of different things going on in your head. There are lots of different voices in there, and they don't all agree on the same stuff. Then you flash forward another 200 years, and if you were trying to explain Facebook and Instagram, even in the simple versions of those, to somebody who lived 100 years ago, it's like it's impossible for them to imagine not only what the experience of that is like, but what that does to culture. And I think we're due for another order of magnitude change as the amount of content that we've been able to make and consume has increased an order of magnitude over the last 30 years. I think it's going to increase another order of magnitude over the next 10 years. And then I think what happens, right? We don't have more capacity for attention. There's only so many hours of attention that we can possibly squeeze out of ourselves. So inevitably, what has to happen is the curation process becomes even more competitive than it was before. And that becomes a scary place for creators, right? Because many of us have started to make our living directly or indirectly through the content that we're making. And I think what we're going to see is a huge, just inundation of new content into a place that's already very crowded.
I have a question with regards to content creation. As I study the Gen Zers, which I am a part of, but I'm the oldest Gen Zer, so I will just take the youngest millennial since I prefer that. They see this consistent theme of they want somebody who's relatable. that is who they would like in an influencer, somebody they feel that they can relate to. And I feel like this idea is actually not what is in practice, because the reality is that there's nothing relatable about an Emin Chamberlain or a Mr. Beast. Now that we're going to have far more proliferation of content creators, of people who make content on the internet, what role models do you think people will seek out for in their influencers? Who would be the new age influencers? There was a time it was the person who's always in Greece, always traveling for some reason on Instagram. And now we're trying to find the YouTuber who is a millionaire but still is relatable. Who do you feel like the future content creators would would be? Yeah.
I have a really difficult time picking what that looks like, in part because so much of my career has been fighting against people who think they know the answer to that question. In the advertising world, there's this real sense that we know what good content looks like, and it's just a matter of whether or not people recognize it as good content. And that's just not the state of the world. Like that's a really ignorant way to look at this evolutionary process of how culture forms. So I like to kind of put myself in the seat of just observing what are the peaks of the attention mountain look like. And I think you're spot on to say Mr. Beast is absolutely at the top of that right now. I think the qualities that Mr. Beast conveys are important qualities for anybody who's trying to get attention and to make content right now should be tuned into. Like Mr. Beast has this ability to write a headline that grabs a massive amount of attention. And when you hear Mr. Beast talk about his content creation process, he's ruthless about what is that kernel, what is the headline, what is the thumbnail, because so much of our selection of what we're going to watch comes down to those bits. He does a really good job of also being, relatable is a hard thing. It's like, is it relatable? Is it authenticity? Is it, I don't know what it is, but it's like, he's likable. Like you kind of feel like you're along for the ride with him and maybe it's because we've watched him grow from a kind of a clickbait YouTuber into this altruistic, like future baron, like for good kind of character. But I think, one of the other things that I think he does that's really interesting is, he's had this familiar cast of characters as part of his channel through the whole process of building. He's been very clear. He's not just making content for fun. Like he's trying to grow the biggest YouTube channel and biggest social following in the world. He's not shy about saying that, but it's like, he brings Carl along. He brings along this familiar cast of characters that makes us feel like it's not Mr. Beast just signed some new agency and now he's got a polished podcast studio. It's like we watched it come about. Like we watched the process by which he found his way. And I think feeling like we're along for the ride is a really important part of that kind of parasocial relationship that we all build with the people that we follow on social media.
Yeah. Since you're someone in advertising and you also make content, what is an ad? What is content? And what is the difference?
There should be no difference. If this is the coaching that I give to brands. It's like, you should put yourself in the shoes of an up and coming YouTuber. And if your ad gets posted and gets 200 views, you should look at that ad as a failure because it didn't earn attention. It didn't compete in the meme pool. Like I think about this all the time. It's like culture is a meme pool in the same way that like a rainforest is a gene pool. And in the meme pool, there are certain selection criteria that determine whether or not your idea is compelling, whether it's packaged in the right way, whether it's connecting with people, and when it's presented among the other possible memes of this meme pool, does it get selected for? And if it doesn't, then go back to the drawing board and try again, because that's your problem as an advertiser is the same as anybody with a communications problem. You have an idea you want to convey. My widget will make your life better. My widget will help you increase your efficiency. My widget will make your dreams come true. That idea has to succeed in the meme pool in order for your brand to work, in order for it to become what we've always kind of aspired to in the advertising world.
Hmm. And if you were like a brand competing in this meme pool, this gene pool for like attention, and your brand is based on exclusivity, I forget what they are, those bags that you have to wait years in advance to get a hold of, and you're competing with, I don't know, the next prank YouTuber for like 2 views on TikTok. How do you actually, and you are meant to advise for both brands, so you're the exclusive brand and the up and coming YouTuber. How do you actually tell both of them to compete in this meme pool?
Well, let's assume that they have the same target audience, right? One of them is a fast food brand that wants bougie, uppity people to go to their restaurant more often, and the other one is trying to get the next, set of pre-orders on the new version of the bag. You can have totally different lanes of conversation. You can have totally different lanes of communicating who you are. The people that I don't only watch one kind of podcaster. It's like I watch some lo-fi podcasts and I watch some hi-fi podcasts. I watch some really produced stuff and I watch some totally not produced stuff. The question, the challenge is looking out into the universe of what messages and what kinds of creators do we want to be. One of my favorite exercises from the old world of advertising is to put on this kind of question of who are we like? What celebrities are we like? What other brands are we like? Or get abstract, like what organic creators are we like? And then by answering that question, you can start to see, okay, so the lane for this kind of content is this. I can't just make the same stuff that everybody else is making. So I need to have my unique spin and perspective on it. But that should be the process, right? Look out into the meme pool, find the successful replicators, find those who have been successful at conveying at least comparable messages, and then take from what exists and start to kind of infuse the ideas that are important to you, whether you're a brand or just a human trying to convey ideas.
As we go into this world where there is so much, there's a battle for attention on TikTok, and at this point, with TikTok, anybody can basically go viral. It really doesn't matter how many followers you have. How do you think a brand can actually build loyalty with its customers, with its followers, and with people in its community? Or are brands just basically just always have to recognize the fact that they are competing with a 12-year-old boy with the Discord and way too much time on his hands?
They will always be competing with that 12-year-old. Like that's always going to be the case. But it doesn't mean you can't build loyalty. Like, you look at the brands that are extremely successful on TikTok. I talk about these every week in my live stream, but it's like Duolingo, right? Big heavy hitter on TikTok. And they are experts at taking from trending meme formats and infusing their kind of own humor and brand meaning into it, right? They're experts at doing that, and they have the view counts to show for it. There's a brand that does like really beautiful shots of like matcha tea like with a special mug that they design, and it's like their content is the exact opposite. Their content is almost competes in the ASMR, like oddly satisfying, chill vibes, like piano music in the background, beautiful shots, slow-mos. But there's something equally gripping about both of those in completely opposite ways. So I think, when you're a brand and you're looking to build loyalty, or you're just a person who like wants to build familiarity with an audience, what are the ingredients that you have? Like, you have how you look, like that's a big one. So you find a lot of like the gaming influencers do little gimmicks, like the Dr. Disrespect wearing his big wig and his big sunglasses, right? And he looks like this kind of throwback 80s character. That's his shtick, right? Like, that's a brand. Like, even when he goes to different events and stuff, you're recognizing the caricature that he puts on. You have like podcast studios. The space that you record in becomes part of the loyalty and familiarity. So, insofar as you're a Joe Rogan or like Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee, it's like the podcast studio space is itself a part of the brand. And the more that people recognize that the value of one piece of content that comes from that scenario, from that environment, the more likely they are to attribute it to the next piece of content that they see from that environment. So I think there's a lot of like subtle things that like we overlook when like advertisers overthink this stuff a lot. It's like they want to get polished stuff. They want to think about like how encapsulated is the final asset? Does it look super professional? Is there any bit of human touch to it that we can erase? And that's this like, you know, that's Renaissance painting, and we're now in this in abstract expressionism. It's like it's not at all about the smoothness of the finish or masking the brush strokes. Now the brush strokes are on display. Like the rawness of content is almost a virtue of content. It for some people now, not everyone, but now I'm rambling.
I was about to say, did you grow up watching WWE?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. Okay. No, I love the WWE because they have the weirdest like shticks. You have literally the Undertaker, a dead man walking, and somehow as kids we were able to believe that there was a dead man who, for some reason or the other, wants to be a wrestler and is fighting living people and sometimes losing. But like, I'm so serious. But the reason why I bring this up is because I wonder what modern brands can learn from WWE superstars about this dedication to who we are. I'm the villain, I'm the hero. I clearly play this role and I play very well. Like, who are we? That question of who are we like? WWE superstars have to answer that question every single day when they get into the arena. And I feel like at this point, a lot of brands are forgetting that question of fundamentally who are we like in the attention.
I love that. Oh, sorry, go. I was just gonna say I love the WWE reference, and I think one of the often like their little tactics are indicative of bigger, more important trends. And I think WWE like has this built-in opposition that to the narrative that makes it more compelling, right? It's like there's the good guy narrative, there's the bad guy narrative, and what's really compelling is the clash between those two things. And I think often brands are missing that tension. Like they don't feel like there's anyone opposing. Like it just feels like you're just telling a message to me. And what you find on TikTok in particular is this brilliant tactic of brands now taking their hater comments and highlighting those and responding to them. You see this in like in the Twitter roasts that Wendy's became famous for, but it's a much broader phenomenon now. And what it does is it sets up the WWE. It's like, look at this bad guy who made a bad comment, and now I'm gonna show him what's up and bounce him off the ropes a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I was about to say, you produced the Beamer's Digest. Would you mind telling us what that is and explain to us the importance of an actual meme? I know we're so used to it, but we forget. And since this is something that you research every single week, what is the Memer's Digest and how important are memes in today's cultural conversations?
Okay, so two big questions. Okay, so Memer's Digest is a live stream that I host once a week for advertisers, creative leaders, social media strategists, community managers. And the purpose of Memer's Digest is to kind of satisfy this missing piece in the advertising kind of industry right now. There's very little in terms of professional development and ongoing education for social media strategists and people who work in social. It's just this kind of, it's presumed when you're a social media worker that you are going to be on top of trends 24/7. You're going to be tuned into all of the new trending meme formats. You're going to know all of the big cultural moments that are happening. And what Memer's Digest is kind of my synthesis of important stuff that you should be tuned into or that might be inspiring for this week. The name Memer's Digest, it obviously is a play on Reader's Digest. And I think memes are so much more fundamental to culture than we realize. I like going back to the old evolutionary biology definition of meme as a unit of culture in the same way that a gene is a unit of DNA. And Richard Dawkins, a brilliant evolutionary biologist, put this idea out in the 70s. And I think we're still unpacking how important it is, because the idea that culture undergoes an evolutionary process is something that has really, really like important implications in how we understand what's going on broadly in culture, but especially in social media. Now memes have come to mean like images and video with like funny text on them. But in the broader kind of landscape of the origin of that word, everything that we convey to one another is a meme. And what's really evolving quickly right now is the format through which those memes are communicated. In the Selfish Gene, which is where the word comes from, Dawkins talks about this kind of separation between genes, which are those kind of units of DNA, and then the machines that genes build around themselves to help them be more competitive in more competitive environments. So like a plant or an animal, Dawkins says, is a machine that a gene builds around itself to make it compete in new landscapes, new environments with new pressures. Memes are the same. So an idea that sits inside of a format is a meme that sits within a meme machine. And there are a billion ways to convey an idea. The challenge is, how do you find the most compelling format through which you can convey that idea? And that's the pressure that social media is putting on us as creators. No longer do we have a book of text. No longer do we have a film or even a TV show. It's like we have a second or two to grab attention, to pull people into something meaningful, to share an idea that we think is important. And if it doesn't accomplish that mission in the first 2 seconds, it's dead in the water. It's not going to work.
Oh, and with memes being a unit of culture, what are some, and I know you hate making cultural predictions, but I'm still going to try to force you to make some. With memes being a unit of culture, what are some things, some trends that you do not think people are nearly as aware of based on your understanding of memes and the way that social media is changing around it?
I want to give, it's a good question. It's a hard question though. One of the things that I think people really get hung up on is wanting to 100% control a meme, to control the idea. You see this in like old school brands like Disney. You see it leak into even more modern brands. Like I have these conversations with brands all the time. I'm blanking on somebody who like really displays it prominently in the open, but there's this brand safety is a buzzword in the advertising world, and it means taking your brand to a place where you can't control the conversation is dangerous. And I think that's such a foolish idea, because there is no such thing as an individual meme. There's no such thing as an individual gene. The meme exists exclusively in the meme pool. The gene exists in the gene pool. Otherwise, it's meaningless. It doesn't have anything. Even the idea, like one of the ideas that I write about in my book, just like a kernel of idea that has existed in culture for as long as there have been Mondays, is the idea that Mondays suck, right? It's like Mondays are the worst. Mondays are the worst day, and there's no shortage of jokes about how much Mondays suck. But the idea of Monday relies that you have access to this whole other network of genes. The idea that the work week starts on a Monday, the idea that time is broken into 7 days and Monday is one of those days, that whatever, we can unpack that forever. But it's like, there is no scenario where you successfully put a meme into the meme pool and maintain control over that idea. You lose control over it as soon as it goes into the meme pool. And so the question for brands and creators now is not how do you package something up so that it just stays intact as it works its way through the meme pool. It's how do you package that meme in such a way that it sparks its own set of conversations and its own generations of new meme replicators that go off and compete on their own.
Yeah.
I think
I feel like we only have 5 minutes left. And I was about to say, where can people find you? What are you working on? Your first book and your second one, let's know everything about it.
So my first book was called The Hidden Psychology of Social Networks. It was really a book for practitioners of social media and people who are trying to use social media as a communications tool. My next book, working title, is Feed, and it's about how social algorithms are shaping the world in ways that we don't necessarily kind of see in our everyday lives, or that aren't necessarily as noticeable as they might be in a kind of broader picture of our timeline. I am really interested in this idea of in a scenario where, you have let me start this over. Today we have this new generation of social app. TikTok, I think, represents this new generation of social media environment. Its algorithm is unrivaled. It is amazing at predicting what kinds of content that you want to see. Inevitably, as these algorithms get better at predicting content, they also become more opaque to us. It becomes less and less clear how something got into our TikTok feed. And I think that problem only exacerbates in the future. So unless we decide that we're going to halt progress and we're just not going to make new social algorithms, which is just not going to happen, then the only path forward to a healthy culture around it is to have a cleaner, clearer relationship with the content in those feeds. So the kind of rallying cry of feed is that social feeds need ingredient labels. We need to clarify for people what their relationship to the content in their feeds is, because otherwise we have so much room for manipulation from advertisers, from people who know how to game those algorithms, from the platforms themselves, the government agencies, to go down our conspiracy rabbit hole again. That are, this is not new news anymore. Like, the government briefs social media companies about what kinds of content to look out for as disinformation. And I think forcing transparency from social media companies about those social feeds and finding ways to express that in ways that change people's relationship with the content so that they understand it better, that I think is the only path forward to maintaining a healthy society where social media is at the very center of it.
Perfect. And where can anybody find you and your book online?
You can find me on Twitter at Joe Federer. You can find me on Reddit as Jareth King of Goblins, or you can find me on LinkedIn as Joe Federer.
Perfect. Everybody, that's Joe Federer. Thank you so much, and I will see you all next time. If you've enjoyed this video, I have lots of other videos around this. Click here to watch some more, and I will see you all next time.